We'll begin with the relegation battle. First of all, and here's how that looks. You've got Plymouth, who are bottom on 33 points. Luton are second from bottom with 35. Derby 22nd on 38. Just outside the relegation zone, we have Cardiff and Stoke level on 39 points. Hull are just above them on 41. And then Oxford and Portsmouth both on 42. Our friends at SBK have Plymouth at 1 to 25 to be relegated. Luton are 2 to 5. Derby are 13 to 10. Then it's Stoke 19 to 10. Cardiff 11 to 5. But the big question that we've got, first of all, Justin Peach, is this: are Plymouth Argyle going down? Yes or no?
Yes.
I have also said yes, which is not a surprise to anyone, I imagine, listening to this. It's a nice little gimme to kick things off in this predictions episode, Justin. Yeah, Plymouth are nearly gone, aren't they? To be fair to them, they're only 5 points from safety, which isn't a huge mountain to climb. But I can see them becoming cut adrift before the end of the season, Justin.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's worth considering and actually saying that they've probably surpassed my expectations for when it was really bad under Wayne Rooney. I was expecting record levels of terrible, well, points tallies, goals conceded, goals scored. You know, it really wasn't looking good. So they have surpassed my expectations. Of course, that doesn't keep them in the Championship. But at the moment, it's really hard to make positive cases for them to stay in the Championship, other than they have a ability to really scrap and fight for points. That's probably not enough to see you to stay in the Championship. It's not sustainable, is it? So, yeah, it's hard to see them staying up, unfortunately.
Yeah, their 4 most recent games are not a promising sample of what's to come, if that is the case, because they had their losses to Hull and Sheffield Wednesday, which were genuinely 2 of the worst performances we've seen from Plymouth this season. They beat Portsmouth, but Portsmouth absolutely dominated that game. I don't know how they lost it, really. And then lost at home to one of their big relegation rivals in Derby County, who had won just once on their travels all season prior to that. So it seems like any fight that they did have has nearly drained away, and it's led to question marks over Miran Muslic's ability as a manager and whether he's just a really good public speaker as opposed to being a good manager. I think the absolute killer, though, is Plymouth's remaining games. They are absolutely rotten. They're not facing anyone below 16th. And keep in mind, they're absolutely hopeless away. So they're relying on their home games. Their home games are against Norwich, Sheffield United, Coventry, and Leeds. So it was a mountain anyway for Plymouth to stay up. Those fixtures make it look like bloody Everest.
Yeah, it's pretty grim. It's pretty grim. And I think what people might point to is, oh, well, they've done it in the FA Cup against Liverpool and Brentford. They're a team that rely heavily on moments, aren't they? Other than that 5-1 win over Millwall, which on the base of it just seemed like a freak result now, they are a team that just rely heavily on moments. And if you're a neutral, Justin, and you have only seen Plymouth in those games this season, you'd be thinking, how on earth are they bottom of the Championship? But we've seen them a lot more than those people, haven't we? Yeah, the other 38 games of the season that they've played so far is a good indictment of why they're bottom of the Championship, with the greatest of respect to them. I think, yeah, you make the point about Miran Muslic being a good public speaker. He is. He's a great public speaker. I'd run through walls for him. But yeah, running through walls does not get you 3 points. Putting the ball in the back of the net does, and he sets his teams up to not do that very well. To really put the dagger in there. But for me, yeah, you look at the law of averages. They do defend their 6-yard box very well, but they concede too much in games. They concede too many chances, sometimes concede too much possession. If they do have the lion's share of possession, like they did against Derby, they don't have enough quality in that final third to see them over the line either. That's a problem. Derby had one chance in that second half, which was the one they scored from in the 87th minute. And that's a big blow. I do expect them to bounce back, and I do expect them to pick up points between now and the end of the season, but they need to string together 5 wins, 6 wins. They've not done that all season.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, is it? So we don't need to spend much more time talking about it, really. I think I've mentioned the fixtures already, just to really ram it home how big a mountain that's looking. Out of every team with something still to fight for, whether that's promotion, the playoffs, or relegation, Plymouth have got the most difficult fixtures based on the average league position of their opponents, which is just, It's just ridiculous, and it's made even harder by how it's fallen with the home or away games. So yeah, Plymouth have fought valiantly at times, but I just cannot see any possibility of them getting out of this. At least, Justin, we'll say this much, as someone who we've covered the Championship for 6 years now.
Yeah.
In most seasons, we have a team who are just absolutely woeful and look relegated with about 10 games to go.
Yeah.
And that's not been the case with Plymouth this season. Yeah, they haven't been great, but they've definitely not been one of the worst teams to finish 24th in a season, assuming that they do finish 24th.
Yeah, they've not stunk the place out, which is, it's not a compliment, but I think if you're going to throw a positive their way, they've not done a Rotherham where they've been horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. Do not look like they're getting results, and they concede left, right, and centre. They have been a bit more valiant since Mudryk came in. I think if they'd have maybe got him in or removed Wayne Rooney sooner, then this position wouldn't have been so ugly. That being said, the quality of the squad just isn't there, is it? I think move manager conversation out of the equation. The squad's just not good enough to compete at this level, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. They're one of the best 24th place teams we've seen covering the Championship, which is such a tongue-in-cheek
thing. I don't know if it's a compliment, but hey, it's a positive.
Yeah, you could take that down to League One with your Plymouth fans. Let's talk about the next team who are just above Plymouth Argyle, Justin, and that's Luton Town. Are Luton Town going down? Didn't mean to rhyme there, but there we go. I've gone with yes. Justin, what do you think?
I don't think they will. I think they'll stay up.
Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting this. Come on then, Justin. Explain why you think the Hatters can get out of this.
There's no logic that supports any argument, to be honest with you. I'm just going to throw that in there. They've been terrible all season. They scored just 34 goals this season, which is the lowest in the Championship. And that's a horrendous position to be in, despite having maybe one of the bigger budgets in the league based on the money that they've spent, the players that they've already got just coming down from the Premier League. But I just feel like the players that they have, and prior to the international break, I've seen a bit of life there. And as I say, just with the players that they have, I think it will click. I think it's a bit of confidence that they need. Perhaps I'm naive, Ryan. Perhaps I'm naive. But they should have beaten Middlesbrough just before the international break. They got Cotton Morris, Heath Chong, Thilo Asgard, who missed some great chances against Middlesbrough. He's getting into good positions. Jordan Clark, Alfie Doherty, Isaiah Jones. The squad isn't too good to go down. I don't believe in that. But if there's confidence in these players, they stay up. I'm sure of it. And I don't think it's going to take much for them to get a run of form going now, because I think the last two games have shown me that they're capable of putting it together.
Interesting. Very interesting. I mean, I will point out when I say Plymouth are going down, I'm 99% sure of that. With Luton, I'm about 75%. Yeah, so I'm not completely all the way with that. I think it's quite annoying, really, with Luton heading into this episode, because I could have really done with an extra 90 minutes to properly assess where they're at now, because they got their first win in ages against Portsmouth. They followed it up with that battering they received at Burnley, but they were down to 10 men for 70 minutes. Then they won at Cardiff and really, really should have won against Middlesbrough last weekend. So is this Luton turning it around or not? I'm not really sure. That's why I could have really done with just one more game to properly judge that. Ultimately, though, I look at it like this, and they've been down there for so long, shown so few signs of shifting from that bottom end of the table, and I've now come to terms with the fact that Luton are more likely than not to be going down this season. So that's the main thing I've got in my mind, though. The other thing is their remaining fixtures. Luton have been appalling away all season. Their 3 games they have got are against teams around them, the away games, that is. Their 4 home games are against Leeds, Blackburn, Bristol City and Coventry. So I'm looking at their remaining fixtures. I'm struggling to nail down with those games where they're going to be winning, particularly with their misfiring strikers who have not been firing at any point this season. So that's why, for me, I think Luton Town are going down.
Yeah, you do make a good argument. You're almost convincing me that they might actually go down. No, but yeah, the remaining fixtures aren't nice. I think you've got to be looking at getting between 48 and 50 points to stay in the Championship at this point. So you're looking at Luton to, at the most get 5 wins out of their 8 games to get that 50 points to make up to 50. 15, that is. So yeah, it's uncomfortable. But as I say, I think we've seen signs of life. We've said this. There isn't a lot of momentum there, but I think out of the teams, Derby, Cardiff, Stoke, Hull, Oxford, Portsmouth have gone as high as Portsmouth. The teams that are down there, Luton have clearly got the best squad. It's very obvious. But the principles that they play under haven't been there. So I think simplifying things and getting them just working hard on their opposition is going to swing them. And obviously, if they can keep the games tight, they've got the players to edge games. I know it's
been saying that all season, though, Justin, haven't we?
It's very hard to make a convincing case to say that they've got the players to do it. Yeah, with 38 games to the season, they're second bottom.
Yeah, why is it going to change now?
Well, that's it. But that being said, we're into an international break now. You then go into a mini season almost. This last 8 games, with the business end of the season, to throw the trademark at it. This is, I wouldn't say it's a complete refresh, but forget what happened in the previous 38 games. Go out and do everything you can in the next 8. As I say, we hit this mini season. I think it's a reset for the likes of Derby, Luton, maybe other clubs like Cardiff and Stoke as well. And I think that will play into their hands a little bit. And as I say, I think with the quality compared to Derby, Cardiff, Stoke, Hull, Oxford, Portsmouth, Luton do have the better squad. That's what pushes me that way a little bit.
I mean, that's undeniable, isn't it? Because a lot of these players were in the Premier League last season and they haven't looked as hopeless in their previous 4 games and as they have done for most of this season. So maybe you're right, Justin. Maybe you are right. But as we were saying, I just don't know why these final 8 games will be any different to what we've seen for the previous 38. So yeah, we'll see. We will certainly see. Let's move on now, Justin, to somewhere a bit closer to home. It's Derby County, the final side occupying the relegation zone as we sit here right now. The question is, Justin, are our beloved Derby County going down? I am going with no.
Yes, League One Rams. Here we go.
Okay. Okay. Is, Justin, this you putting on your usual act of being an overly cynical Derby fan?
No. I've looked at this completely objectively. I had to, because I think me being the pessimist that I am, that listeners will be far too aware of, they will know that I will sit on the negative side of the fence, because come the end of the season, if Derby do stay up, I'm happy. They've exceeded my expectations, but I worry. I do worry about Derby. I think John Eustace has turned a ship. They had a really good 7 days. They won 3 on the trot. But their form does show how quickly things can change, because heading into this 3 wins, they lost 3. So whilst this 3 wins has put them in a really good place, it's not a safe one. And they've got a lot of players out injured. Ben Osborne, Nathaniel Mendes-Lang, Corey Blackett-Taylor, I think is due at the end of April. David Ozo's out for the season. These are all important players with experience, aside from Ozo, and quality that are missing here. So I think in terms of their squad shape, they're relying on the same 15, 16 individuals to carry them through a very busy period. I think fatigue will catch up with them. The lack of players will catch up with them. I just don't think they've got enough to see it out. And I'm not even talking about the attacking quality, which is still not there, unfortunately.
I'm not sure I buy that about the fatigue, Justin, because I just think it's 8 games. Fatigue, is it really going to catch up with them in these next 8 games than it would have earlier? I don't know. And plus, I'm guessing they'll have players coming back in
6 weeks. It's a lot of football to play.
It is a lot of football to play, but I don't look at the other teams down there and think they've got much thicker squads than Derby. But the reason I'm saying that he will stay up, and I mean, the big factor here for me is because of the amount of progress they've made under John Eustace. They've gone from a side who are absolutely clueless going forwards, just lumping in cross after cross, to now being composed in that final third and willing to be a bit more unpredictable. The 3-5-2 formation that Eustace has been going with is working a treat. The recent performances of Marcus Harness and Harrison Armstrong are very, very encouraging. And defensively, they've been really, really good. Another big thing, and I know I've banged on about the fixtures a lot so far, 6 of their 8 remaining games are against sides in the bottom half. They are very, very favourable, and considering you've got 5 teams all within 4 points of Derby as we look at the league table right now, I think at least one of them will finish below John Eustace's boys, because I think they've got the momentum. I mean, they've got more momentum now than any other side in the bottom half of the table. So I've got faith that Derby will be able to get out of this.
I think, yeah, I do agree with a lot of what you said in that John Eustace has turned it around. They are a lot more unpredictable. You know, the long throw-ins. I've not seen Derby take a long throw-in since Chris Baird was at the club, and that was years ago. So, you know, they are a rare case at Pride Park. So they are unpredictable. I just think if this appointment was made a month earlier, Derby wouldn't be in a as precarious position as they are. I think the thing that comes down.
Well, surely that means they'll be all right then, doesn't it? Because if they're going to keep, you know, going at the same level than they're at now, considering they're only 1 point from safety, then that should mean they'll be safe, won't it?
Well, yes, but that's looking at them as a singular, not looking at them compared to Luton, for example, or other teams like Cardiff who pick up results here and there, and Stoke who, you know, for the past couple of seasons have been lingering around the bottom 6 and have managed to put a run together before the end of the season. Steven Schumacher put together an unbeaten run around this time last year for Stoke. So, you know, it's comparing them to other teams, and I just think timing wise, as I say, if this appointment was made much sooner, Derby would be in a healthier position. That goes without saying. But again, I think the fatigue thing will play a big role in it. I think the players, they've been stretched this last week. The international break comes at a good time. If they can get players back fit, that would be great. But you know, they've got a lot of youngsters on the bench as well from the under-18s who've had to step up. So yeah, that makes me more nervous about Derby. For me, it comes down to that personnel problem. I just think they've got the squad's not deep enough to cope with the next 6 weeks.
Plenty of relegation 6-pointers to go for Derby. They've got to play Portsmouth, Luton, Hull and Stoke. Luton and Stoke both at home. Stoke's on the final day. And then Derby have to go to Hull, who have the worst home record in the division. So that's another reason why I'm seeing a hell of a lot more positives than negatives about Derby's chances between now and the end of the season. So the final question on the relegation battle, Justin, is this. If you said no to any of the previous 3 questions, who else is going down? Kick us off, Justin. Who do you think is the side who you think are going down instead of Luton Town in this case?
Yeah, I'm throwing Stoke in there. I've said it time and time again, haven't I? If you're relying on the teams below you to help you, you're in a bad place. And I don't think Luton are going to be as poor as they have been. I think this, as I say, we head into a mini season. I think Luton have got more about them than Stoke certainly do. And it just feels like there's something missing with this Stoke team. It feels like they don't sort of realise the danger they're in. Not saying they're not fighting for it, but there's something missing with this team that several managers have really struggled to tap into. Interestingly as well, they're relying on Ali El Hamadi to be the man to spearhead them. I do really enjoy him. He's not had a full season at Championship level yet. And if he gets injured, he did hobble off against Millwall. And obviously he's out on international duty now. So if he doesn't come back fit, they're relying on Sam Gallagher, who's next in line, who, you know, I do like him, but not prolific, and his injury record isn't great either. So going forwards, there's a risky situation there because Lewis Baker's their current top goal scorer at the club with 4 goals.
Yeah, not ideal. And I don't blame you for going with Stoke at all, Justin. I was and ahhing between Cardiff and Stoke because they seem to be constantly trading the title of the club in the most imminent danger outside of the bottom 3, don't they? They've been doing that for the last few weeks, really, haven't they? But the more I've looked into it, I'm not actually going to go with either of them. Instead, I'm going to say Oxford United are the side most likely to go down outside of the bottom 3. Okay. A side who, of course, did tremendously well initially when Gary Rowett came in, but no team has picked up fewer points than them over the last 10 games in the whole of the Championship. And a prolonged run of form like that heading into the final 8 games always instantly sets off alarm bells for me. They got their first win in 10 last weekend, but they've been pretty poor for a while prior to that. And even then, that win against Watford was far from convincing. Watford really should have got something from it. So I was worried about Oxford anyway. And then I saw who they have to play, and oh boy, Plymouth Argyle, you've got a rival for the most rotten remaining fixtures. Keep in mind, Oxford have only won once away from home all season. They're relying on their results at the Kassam quite heavily, but at home, they still have to face Sheffield United, QPR, Leeds, and Sunderland. Yes, QPR is the odd one out there, but those other three, bloody hell. So that's a bit of a stinker, and that's one of the chief reasons why, apart from the other things I've already mentioned, why I think Oxford will be the team to go down this season.
I'm just going to throw a spanner in the works here, maybe. This is when the going gets tough for Gary Rowett, he balls the shit out of you in a good way. He makes it horrible to play against his football teams when he needs results. You know, you can go back to the Birmingham City days for this, when they're scrapping for points. When he was at Derby, and Derby were looking like they were going to drop out of the top 6, he went to a really flat back 5 and went super direct and managed to get a little unbeaten run to solidify that top 6 place for the players when he was in charge of Derby. And then you go back to Millwall days when runs start to drop off. Yeah, it gets really boring. And I think this Oxford team have not yet hit that stage. And as well as that, they've only, for me, as I say, 48 points is the golden ticket to staying in the Championship this season, which is a high points tally. They're only 6 points off. So if they can get a win and a few draws in there, I would render them safe. So in terms of them making up ground, they've got the least to do out of the teams that are below them. I
take your point, Justin, but when you talk about their run of form and their remaining fixtures, finding the wins there is quite difficult. Well, yeah, you are right about Gary Rowett. I would always say I'd be surprised to see a Gary Rowett side go down, and even though he did get relegated with Birmingham last season, that wasn't really his fault at all. But I look at Oxford's current plight, and he has been struggling, because I suppose it is worth remembering, I don't think he's ever had a squad to work with in the Championship as poor as this Oxford team. And I think that's really been found out to be the case in the last few weeks. So it's hard for me to find causes for optimism in the near future with them. And if you like my shout of Oxford to go down, SBK have them at 13-5 to be relegated. I would say, for full clarity, after Oxford, I would say the next most likely to go down is Cardiff, because just 5 wins in 25, an unconvincing manager. I would put them ever so slightly ahead of Stoke, although to be honest, I won't be surprised if they went down either. So there you have it. Justin thinks Plymouth, Derby and Stoke are going down. I think it'll be Plymouth, Luton and Oxford. That's been the relegation battle. After this short break, we'll discuss who's going up and who's winning the league. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. This is our prediction show ahead of the business end of the season. And we've just looked at the bottom of the table. Now it's time for us to look at the top of the table. Who is going up? So this is how it's looking currently. Leeds are, of course, top of the table on 80 points. Sheffield United are just behind them in second, but also on 80 points. Burnley are sat third with 78 points. It is so damn tight. But the question is, how's it all going to end? With SBK, Leeds are 4-9 to win the title, not just to get promoted, to win the title. Sheffield United are 7-2. Burnley are 15-2. So we'll start off by revealing who we think is missing out on promotion. Justin Peach, who do you think is going to be finishing third this season?
I think it'll be Burnley.
I have also gone Burnley. So why don't you think Burnley are going up automatically, Justin?
I just think they draw too many games. I think defensively, they set them up very nicely to be a automatic promotion contender, which they are. I think it'll serve them better in the playoffs, but more on that later. But I think you need a killer instinct to push for the top 2, and it's not something we've seen regularly enough this season for Burnley. Not regularly enough anyway to convince me that they're capable of overcoming Leeds and Sheffield United. Just for example, you look at Ipswich last season, how often did they score late in a game to win it? Yeah, that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. Southampton suffered with a similar thing under Russell Martin last season. They finished 4th. Won the playoffs, mind, so it might bear well there. It's not a negative, but I think just looking at how many draws they've had, it tells you that they've had 15 compared to 11 for Leeds, which is still quite high, which is why Leeds are only 2 points ahead of Burnley at the moment. And Sheffield United have drawn 7, which granted they've lost more games than Burnley, but I think it's that instinct to just keep going in games, edge it, and I think that's what gets you into that top 2.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with anything you say there, Justin. I think the first thing for me is I just think the top 2 are better. If we're boiling it down to as simple as that, I think that's the case. Not just in terms of points tally, but I think Leeds have the edge in terms of their squad, and Sheffield United have the edge in terms of the manager, who, as we've said numerous times, has been like the Chris Wilder of old this season. And as remarkable a season as it's been for Burnley with the numerous records that they have broken, they can still find themselves coming unstuck very easily. And we all know how often they find themselves struggling to break down opposition. Now, in terms of their remaining fixtures, they've got the hardest games based on league position out of these sides chasing the automatics. But I would actually say they're facing a few teams who may not have much to play for by the time they face Burnley, which could be an advantage. On the other hand, it might not be an advantage, because I sometimes think that might be a myth where those teams who don't have anything to play for, the pressure's off and they're more willing to take risks, that kind of thing. So it depends which way you look at it. But of course, they have still got to play Sheffield United at Turf Moor. So Burnley are well in this race. I would by no means rule them out of getting automatically promoted. I just simply fancy the other 2 more than this Burnley side.
Yeah, again, that's fair. I think it sort of lends into what I was saying about being convinced. Leeds and Sheffield United have done a lot more convincing this season than Burnley. But granted, Burnley are only 2 points off them, and they've only conceded 11 goals as well. So they're in a really decent position. But I think it's just that drive. And I think they're a team that probably suffers with a lot more anxiousness than other clubs, than Leeds and Sheffield United. I think because maybe people aren't overly convinced by Parker Ball. Again, if a game's poised 0-0 in the 78th minute at Turf Moor, it's more than likely going to finish 0-0. Whereas with Leeds, they're going to get a chance. They've shown it against Sunderland and Sheffield United in recent weeks that they can do something spectacular with a moment, whereas Burnley haven't done that often enough. So yeah, I just think the other 2 teams are a little bit more convincing than Burnley. That being said, because the amount of clean sheets they keep, that does have them in games. It keeps them in games, isn't it? So it's a hard one to call. It's going to be tight. I reckon there'll be 2 points in it.
Keeps them out of games, though, Justin.
Yeah, defence keeps them in it. The attack doesn't do much, but I think there's going to be probably 2 points in it by the end of the season as well. It's going to be close.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very close as well. But right now, I would say it's the current top 2 who are going up. But we still have the small matter, Justin, of who is finishing first and second. You know, the small matter of who's winning the league. That's what we're talking about here. So, Justin, first of all, who is finishing second, Sheffield United or Leeds?
I've gone with Leeds.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
I've gone with Leeds.
I've gone with Sheffield United finish second, Leeds to finish first. Of course, you're going Sheffield United to finish first. Go on then, Justin. Explain why you think that, because it's a big old call.
It is a big call. And again, I just think it's going to be super tight come the end of the season. I think there's going to be a 90 minutes in it, or even going down to the last kick of the final game of the season. Recency bias is probably feeding into it a little bit because their wobbles have left me a little bit unsure. But looking forward, dare I say, they've got 2 lunchtime kickoffs left this season. I'll park that there. They've got 4 away games. You mentioned they're inconsistent away from home. They're inconsistent with, well, they're consistently poor with lunchtime kickoffs, but they are inconsistent with away games as well, which we're pointing out. They've got 4 left, and they've got 4 at Ellen Road, which does stand them in good stead. But I think if you mix those 2 components together, they might just get pipped by a title. We're talking about really marginal things here, because Sheffield United and Leeds have been terrific this season, even Burnley. And again, when games are tight, as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, games have been tight for Sheffield United. Mike Cooper has been very, very assured in the Blades goal. Ilya Meslier, not quite the same. Statistically, we know this isn't the case, that he keeps leading games. So I think, as I say, with those very, very small things, I think Blades will edge Leeds to the title.
Wow. That's a very interesting call, Justin. I'm not going to disagree too much with everything you've said there, because I think Sheffield United are a very good side. But I'm sticking with Leeds. Now, Leeds' recent wobble, that is a concern. It's always going to be a concern when it comes to Leeds and this stage in the season, when we start to see performances like they have put on recently. But the big thing for me is Leeds' remaining games. 6 of their 8 remaining games are against sides in the bottom half. Now, keep in mind what has been Leeds' Achilles heel at various stages this season isn't early kickoffs. It's been their away results. But their remaining away fixtures are basically a dream. Luton, Middlesbrough, Oxford and Plymouth. Obviously, Middlesbrough is tricky, but the other 3 are the 3 sides I'm predicting to go down. And at home, Leeds have been near faultless all season. So it's hard to see them having too many issues against Swansea, Preston, Stoke and Bristol City. Maybe Bristol City, but the others they should be fine with. So I'm not seeing many banana skins on the road ahead for Leeds. And keep in mind, Burnley and Sheffield United are playing each other. So one of them's going to be dropping points at the very least. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of squad, Leeds should be pissing promotion anyway. Considering the position they were in not long ago, they should be pissing promotion. If they don't get promoted and win the league with this set of remaining games, this would be the worst example of Leeds falling apart yet, because there's absolutely no excuses with those remaining games, Justin.
Yeah, I don't think it's the worst example of Leeds falling apart. I think Leeds literally falling
here,
apart.
Out of Luton, Middlesbrough, Oxford, Plymouth, Swansea, Preston, Stoke and Bristol City, where they're going to be slipping up.
I know,
really?
looking at it like that, yes, it does. There's logic to it, but Leeds have got to go to Kenilworth Road and play Luton, who are fighting for points. They got to go to the Kassam and Oxford, who are fighting for points, with the guy Rowett in charge, who will put a game plan out that's going to frustrate the hell out of Leeds.
Yeah, but Justin, they're not on the same plane as Leeds.
No, they're not.
They shouldn't be, which is why I say if they don't get it done, it'll be an absolute bollock drop from them.
Yeah, but Leeds lost to Portsmouth a week ago. Do you know what I mean? These teams can have anomalies sometimes, and Leeds have a habit of dropping points stupidly at times as well. You look at the QPR games recently is one example. Then you go to Preston way back in December. Just looking at the fixtures now, the chaotic draw against Hull. Leeds do have a habit of really fucking themselves over sometimes. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case, because, as you say, if they do this, it'll be a big drop off and a decent case for them falling apart. I don't think it's the worst one by any means.
They're definitely falling apart, without a doubt. That's not even up for debate. If they have 8 anomalies from now until the end of the season,
they're not anomalies, are they?
They're not anomalies at that point. That is absolutely falling apart. So, yeah, it'll be a massive, massive cock up from them, and much worse than I think anything we've ever seen from Leeds at this level.
But yeah, it will be a massive drop off. But I think promotion is the target, especially after last season. I think with Sheffield United, they've got a team going toe for toe with them, which ramps up the pressure. And as we've seen, the pressure tells with this Leeds squad with certain individuals. And then I don't think the squad's as good as it is last year, so I think it's worth bearing that in mind. I think it's probably a little bit more depth there, but certainly not as many individuals who can, when games are tight, really, really make the difference. So again, I think that will play a part. I don't think I'll lose many games between now and the end of the season, but as we saw against QPR, just this past weekend for the international break, they can drop the points quite easily. So yeah, I'm a little bit hotter on Sheffield United at the moment than I am Leeds. Simple.
Absolutely no excuses, Daniel Farker. If you and your team mess it up from this stage, then it'll be absolutely carnage. Justin, we have actually got one more question for us to answer right here, and it's to do with the playoffs. And it's a small question of who's going to win the playoffs. Now, obviously there's still a long way to go. We don't even know who's competing in the bloody thing. So we are answering this with a bit of, I don't know, a bit of a just kind of shot in the dark kind of aura about it. But what are you saying here? Who do you think is going to win the playoffs?
It doesn't matter which team is involved. If Scott Parker's managing them in, I think they win the playoffs. Obviously, it's going to be Burnley, unless there's a crazy set of results where, I don't know, Regis Labrie leaves Sunderland and Scott Parker fancies a move up to Wearside. I don't know. But, you know, he's done it with Fulham. I mean, that's the only example. But I think it's the fact that he manages big games really well, Scott Parker. Really, really well. It'll be a dual playoffs, but I think his game plans are very, very effective. And defensive-minded teams, I've said this since we started this podcast, if you're defensively minded, you stand a better chance in the playoffs.
I think that is absolutely fair. I've gone for whoever finishes third, which, according to our predictions, is going to be Burnley. But if it's Sheffield United or Leeds, then I would still back them to get promoted via the playoffs anyway. And the reason for that is because, look, we love the playoffs, Justin. It's one of the most uniquely brilliant things about the EFL. But the harsh truth is it's not as much of a lottery nowadays as it once was, because it's been 6 years since a side who finished 5th or 6th won in the playoffs. And I find that hard to I find that hard to see that changing this season, considering how far ahead the top 4 have been. If it's Coventry v Sunderland in the semis, that would be interesting, but it's hard to see 6th place doing a job on Burnley if they do indeed finish third. And to echo your point, Justin, we're big critics of Scott Parker for how dull his football is and how he doesn't make the most of the attacking talent he's got. But when it comes to his in-game management of big occasions, he is superb. And I agree with you. Defensive football, I think, always does well when it comes to the playoffs. So yeah, the playoffs are really tailor-made for him. So if it's the only thing I can really scupper this prediction is if Sunderland build up a head of steam between now and May, then I would give them a chance. But I would still put Burnley down as the overwhelming favourites to actually win the bloody things. And I struggle to see any of the teams currently chasing 5th or 6th actually causing many problems for those two.
Well, yes and no. I think over 2 legs, you back Burnley under Scott Parker, and then you get to Wembley and it does become a bit more of a lottery because it's a single game. You've got to take a risk. So I think, if you've got a Coventry or a West Brom who are, I think, a little bit more on the Maverick side of things, and they do finish in the playoffs, that is, then they can probably do some damage to Burnley, Scott Parker. But I just think in terms of managing the bigger games, being able to for example, Burnley have conceded 11 goals this season, over 180 minutes, and then another 90 minutes at Wembley. Are they going to concede 1 or 2 goals? Are they going to try and take it to penalties? No. And they do have the quality as well to edge games, and they've got a lot of energy in the midfield with likes of Josh Cullen, Josh Brownhill, Josh Laurent. The three. The
Keep
whole
in mind,
trinity.
You've also got to try and beat a team who are unbeaten in 25 games. Over 2 games. That would be very, very difficult to do.
Exactly.
You wouldn't want to face Burnley, would you?
The Burnley are the last team you want to play. They lost 2 games all season, for goodness sake. It's an awkward. They're an awkward side. They're a hard side to navigate. And I mean, you said it the other week, didn't you? Where if you play for a 0-0 against Burnley, you're going to get a 0-0, but then you've got penalties to sort out, and then you've got to come up against James Trafford, who is very good at penalties. Not just talking about Wilson Isidore moment earlier on in the season. His time with the under-21s as well. So there's a lot of variables there that just point to Burnley, unfortunately.
Yeah. You're not wrong, Justin. You're not wrong at all. So, yeah, we like to play up the romantic side of the playoffs, but
Scott Parker makes them predictable.
It could be a very predictable one this season, unfortunately. But hey, there's still a lot to play for, Justin. A lot can change between now and May. So who knows? Who bloody knows? But there we go. These have been our predictions for how we think the final 8 games of the season are going to go. If you're a Patreon subscriber, it's not over yet. We've got the extended edition of the weekend show coming up, which we like to call Zamora Time, time, we'll be talking about who's going to finish in the top 6. We may have just been playing down the chances of those sides actually winning the playoffs, but you may disagree with us. So find out who we think is most likely to finish 5th and 6th in Zamora Time. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, sign up to get Zamora Time every single weekend. Head over to patreon.com/second tier. Link is in the description of this episode. Otherwise, that's just about time for us here on the Second Tier Podcast. We'll be back again on Thursday to give you a news roundup of everything happening across the Championship. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.